So I'm standing on the side of the road in Sicily next to my brand new Canadian boyfriend, MJ, with my thumb out. It's 1976, and I've just met MJ at the Palermo train station. I've been hitching across Europe by myself for the last couple of months, and I'm really happy to have a traveling companion. It just sort of feels safer to travel with somebody else. Now, hitchhiking across Europe sounds glamorous, but it wasn't the original plan. I went to college when I was barely 17, and I was really proud of that until I dropped out 18 months later with a 1.8 GPA. So I feel like a loser, and I'm really ashamed, and I've sort of escaped to Europe to get away from all of that. Well, a white florist van pulls over to pick us up, and the driver's name is Michele. He's handsome and swarthy, old, really old, no, mid-30s. But we have this cheerful, broken English kind of conversation, and it ends with him saying, "You should spend the night at my grandmother's?" And MJ and I look at each other, jackpot! We have no money, and we're trying to make every nickel we've got stretch as far as possible. So, free place to stay, free food, hell yeah. Well, we get to Michele's hometown, and we dump the florist van, and we get into his BMW. Okay. Well, then he starts driving us around town, showing us off like a little mafia don or something. And we get to his grandmother's house to drop off our backpacks, and we meet a couple of his friends there. One of them's a big guy, dusky, good-looking like Michele, and the other one's small, balding young, slender. And Michele says to the bald guy, "Take the car, get some gas, get some food, and come back here." And he turns to us and says, "We take you to some nice caves where no tourists go." And again, we're like, "Oh, we really like the off the beaten path stuff, the local stuff, that's great." Well, half an hour of driving into the center of Sicily, down a narrow path and road, and we get out and then we have to hike, and we get to the cave, and it's got this really small hole. You have to sort of get on your knees and climb in there, and all of a sudden, like a snap twig frightens a deer, I am afraid. I realize that I am in the middle of nowhere with three strange men about to go into a small enclosed space. Maybe that's not the smartest thing to do. So I sort of take a big step back and I say, "You know what? I'm gonna wait here." Now, Michele's face darkens, but he doesn't say anything. And he and MJ and the other men go into the cave, and 10 minutes later, they come out, smiling, laughing, and now I feel kind of silly for being afraid. And Michele says, "Time to mangi." So we all hike back out and drive back down into town, and we're on the coastal road, and the bald guy's driving, and he goes straight through town, which seems kind of strange, but it's still light outside, the mood is friendly, and the food is free. So we get to this estate with an orchard, and we pull over to the caretaker's cottage, and it's just very plain. There's a small kitchen, table and chairs, and like a cot. And the bald guy must live here because he immediately busies himself with cooking. And the big guy goes out and then comes back in with a 5-gallon gasoline tanker full of homemade wine. And then he pours that wine into iced tea glasses. And Michele says, "We drink to friends, yes?" And I am 18 years old. I do not know how to drink to get a buzz and quit. So I'm drunk in no time. Everybody's drinking except the bald guy. Well, after dinner, Michele brings his chair close to me and takes my hand and starts talking to me, and I'm trying to focus on him, which is a little difficult after all that wine. And then the next thing I know, the big guy has pulled his chair up on the other side of me. And they're talking a lot in Italian, And I can tell by their smiles and smirks that they're talking about me. So I stand up to put some distance between us, and Michelli hooks me around the waist and pulls me onto his lap, and his hand slides across my butt and down my thigh. So I push off and away from him, but the big guy pulls me onto his lap, and he cups my breast with his hand. And I call out to MJ, "Make them stop touching me." Weaving, MJ stands up and he says, "It's late. We should go back into town." Michelli smiles and says, "Sure, it's a good time for a ride." So we go outside, it's pitch black. We pile into the BMW. I am in the passenger seat, MJ is directly behind me. We drive down to the coastal road, and I realize that the bald guy turns on the road away from town. Even though I am drunk, I know that he is going in the wrong direction, and that deer-like fear is back. What is going on here? Where is he taking us? Why aren't we going back to town? And I slide my hand back between the door and the edge of the car to MJ, and I squeeze his hand really hard to let him know how scared I am. He leans forward and he whispers in my ear, "And eventually they have to stop. When they do, open your door and run." About 20 minutes later, the car slows down. It starts to take a sharp turn off the road, and it stops. And I throw open my door and I run out, but I'm so drunk I fall down and my legs are underneath the car. MJ comes behind me, grabs me under the arms, picks me up, and we start running full out. But then we're tumbling and falling. The coastal road is on a 10-foot high berm, and we fall to the bottom of the ditch. The 3 doors fly open and the Sicilian men come out. At first they say, "And MJ, where you go? Come back." But we don't say anything. We just lie against that earth and stay quiet. We hear the pop of a trunk, and now there are flashlights. And Michelli says, "Come out. We don't have time for this. We will find you." But we just stay hanging down there, burrowed into the earth like a couple of moles. Eventually, we hear the doors slam and the car drive away. I start to get up, but MJ grabs me by the shoulder and pulls me back down, and he whispers in my ear, "There are 3 men, but only 2 doors closed." So we stay in that ditch, and about 10 minutes later, we hear a car come back. We hear a single door open and close and drive away. About 45 minutes later, because we were so scared they were going to come back again, we climb back up onto the road, and we choose to go away from town until we find a pension at 2 a.m. and wake up a very unhappy owner. We rip our money and our passports that are strapped to our bodies onto the counter, and then we collapse into bed, just exhausted from adrenaline, fear, and wine. The next morning, in the light of day, hungover, I say to MJ, "Well, maybe we overreacted." And MJ said, "Let's walk back and see if we can find the tire tracks." I said, "You know what? I lost my watch. Maybe we can find that too." So half an hour later, we find some tracks that are pulling straight off the road at a 90-degree angle, and we find my watch. And we followed the direction that the car was turning, because I thought maybe they'd take us to a disco or something. And we walk all the way out, and it went nowhere. Just the empty beach. And then it hit me. They were not taking us home. They were not taking us to a disco in all likelihood. They were going to rape me and kill us both. I feel the sudden urge to puke. MJ just abruptly sits in the sand, and we stare at each other as we realize how close we came to death. And then this feeling of exhilaration swept over me. We had an adventure! I came to Europe because I thought I was weak, but I am strong, even drunk. I am not a loser. I am invincible. Empowered now, we march back into that town. We go to that grandmother's house, we get our backpacks, and 10 minutes later, We are standing on the side of the road in Sicily with our thumbs out.